Do you ever feel like One Piece games take way too long, and you want to know if you're going to win or lose in the first couple rounds? Look no further than Belo Betty. This absolute glass cannon has been doing very well in the EB02 format against Green Purple Luffy, and is only going to get better in OP11. As you know, you can discard one card from your hand per turn and give up to 3 of your characters plus 3,000 power during your turn, making it an absolutely aggressive but extremely offensive deck. Let's go ahead and talk about what cards I like to play in this deck in our EB02 format. First off, I like starting with 4 Searchers of the 1-cost Belo Betty. It is great to find your pieces, but at the same time, utilizing your leader's ability, these become 5,000 power characters, and you can already start poking at your opponent's leader and life and even counter very early on. I then like playing 4 copies of the 2K Koala as our first 2K for the deck. Of course, you're going to use it as counter, but being able to minus 3,000 on play and then follow up with something maybe like Lindbergh, which you get to KO a 3,000 power or less character. In combination with that, boom, you're already getting rid of 6,000 power characters of your opponents without having to do too much work. And then of course, at the same time, you're getting so much value. Yes, this is a 3,000 power character, but leader ability and boom. Belo is much more about getting bodies on the board and boosting them than worrying about your bodies being 4, 5, 6k in power. Next up, I like playing 4 copies of Inazuma. It is a rush card if you have a character with 7,000 power or above, which of course is not a problem with your leader ability. And playing this off of, let's say, an Ivankov, boosting Ivankov, playing this out, boom, attach a couple Dawn, you get a little bit more of poking power in your Belo Betty deck. We play 4 copies of the Karasu blocker. It is great to have a low-cost blocker up there to keep your life not as close to 0 as possible early on. At the same time, it has a fantastic trigger that if your life and your opponent's life total is 5 or less, you can play this card. So late in game, when they're going for life, if you have one of these in your life and you can pop out a blocker, it can really screw up your opponent's calculations and Dawn count. I then play 4 copies of this 3-cost Belo Betty. It's more for a late game to avoid myself being starved for cards in hand. But on play, if you have 2 or less life cards, draw 1 card, and then has a similar, if not the same, trigger for Karasu as well. So late in the game, you pull it off trigger, boom, extra card. It can give you a little bit extra counter or something to pitch to activate Belo Betty. Then in terms of 4 cost, I'm running 4 Lindberghs. I don't always play this card, and it tends to be one of the first ones that I consider pitching or using as counter, but it really does help in certain situational matchups, especially in collaboration with the on-play Koala. I like playing 2 copies of Inazuma. Again, I don't use this all the time, but 1 Dawn attached when attacking, rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost equal or less than the total of your and your opponent's life cards. So it can be helpful if you want to KO something that is giving you a little bit of trouble that may have a activate main effect, but it's not necessarily going to be rested when it uses that. So, you need to do something to be able to swing into it. But again, this is also a very strong contender early on to discard for my Belo Betty effect. Next up, we play 4 copies of the Kuma 2K counter, which again has the exact same trigger, total opponent in your life of 5 or less, play this card. Great to put a body on the board. And then for EB02's edition, we play 4 copies of this 2K Sabo. Again, it's just a great 2K to have, but not a bad body in a backup situation. You have a 5K body, activate main, you may rest this character and add 2,000 power during your turn. So you can establish a body and boost something during the same turn. It works great as a backup body if you're not seeing the cards that you need on curve. Next up, the best card in this deck. Yes, we were playing 4 copies of Karasu. This is insane. If you have 2 of these on the board, it really just feels like a win condition because you're gonna swing pretty wide with 3 or 4 bodies into their leader, -1,000, -1,000. You're swinging 5 into 3 without any Dawn. it really just does not feel good to be a 3K leader. This is also an absolute threat. Sometimes I use this as a pseudo blocker. I put it down just to have my opponent focus on something for the next turn and save me a little bit of life moving on. Next, I play 4 copies of the Ivankov. This is activate main, of course. When you boost this to 7K, you can play something else out of your hand with 5,000 or less. So it does feel really good to be able to play this card, activate ability, pull in an Inazuma, and then swing, establishing 2 bodies on the board with a cost of 4 Dawn, and being able to swing with your rush card. This is a very good card. I try not to pitch it, but again, there are certain situations where I just can't use this card. For your, going first curve, we have a different Ivankov, which you get to search the top 3 and play something with 5,000 or less. So it really is interesting. I mean, if you think about this on play, look at 3 cards, play a Revolution card with 5,000 or less, being able to see this, and then playing something off of that. With 5 Dawn, you're establishing 3 bodies on the board with at least 5K in attacking power, and that can really turn the tides really quick. Of course, that also helps avoid you using cards from your own hand with this searching on the top 3, so you're not going to be starved as common. But if starvation is the tactic of your opponent and you're having a lot of problems, this is why I play 6 copies of this Koala. On play, you add 1 card from the top and bottom of your life, play a card with cost of 4 less from your hand, and draw 1 card from the top of your deck. So this is going to give you 2 cards in hand, 2 bodies on the board, and a blocker. This can really help you if your opponent is just trying to starve out your cards and swing for all your life in one go. That is my list for the EB02 format Belo Betty. I think Belo Betty, yes, is a rogue deck, but it's surprising how many matchups she does really, really well in. Shanks feels a little bit rough right now, but with green-purple Luffy and the new OP11 Luffy coming into play, I think you're going to see a lot more Belo Betty in the future. But stay tuned for OP11 is just around the corner, and I'll be making a video about the changes and upgrades for this deck going into absolutely destroy our new OP11 Luffy. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about specific matchups or, the way that I like to play this deck, please feel free to leave one in the comment below, and we'll see you next time.